Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today it's not only Monday, it's Easter Monday, so happy Easter to you and everyone out there. And we celebrate the Easter Monday on this channel with the Snare of the Month. And this month's choice is my Yamaha 13x5 Dave Weckl signature snare. Guys, if you like this or any other video on my channel, or if you like me personally, please consider subscribing. That would actually help me out quite a bit. And now let's get right into it. They released several different snare drums under his name. You know, in the early 90s, I believe 94, they released 4 different models. I believe 2 of them were aluminum, and then they released the, famous 14x5.5, I guess, maple, and the 13x5 maple. And those drums got reissued a couple of years later. And then the 30th anniversary Dave Weckl signature snares came out, where they also introduced a black nickel over brass snare drum. That's the one he mainly uses these days, the 14x5.5 black brass snare. So this is an original one from the early 90s, 94 I guess. I bought this a couple of weeks ago on eBay, and the condition of this snare drum is gorgeous. Receiving a snare that is almost 30 years old in that kind of condition is really rare. Only thing, when it arrived here in Vienna, when I first unpacked it, one of the 2 snare throw-offs was broken, so we had to replace it, but that was absolutely no problem. Luckily, they still make those, so we replaced it, and yeah, now everything's working fine. And other than that, the overall condition of the drum is marvelous. Okay, now some quick features. I already spoiled it out now, talking about the 2 snare throw-offs, and that's, the speciality of the Dave Weckl signature snares. You can see 2 separate snare wires here. And they also consist out of different material. The one, closer to you is, I believe, the normal carbon one. And the one farther back from you, if you have your, snare wires going that way, is stainless steel. You can dial in both of those snare wires at the same tension, and then you can just, use one of them or use both. But the real trick about it and the idea behind this was having one snare strainer tight and the other one loose, in order to give you not only the best of both worlds, but to give you both worlds at the same time. The sound of loose snare wires and tight snare wires at the same time. And the way Dave Weckl does it, he has the snare strainer, facing him, so the carbon fiber one tight, and the farther away strainer, the stainless steel, loose. So now you don't have to decide. You get that super crisp, super articulate clarity of, tight snare wires. And at the same time, you can dial in the other one quite loose to have that, warm, open, resonating, airy, wiry sound of loose snare wires at the same time. So that's an absolute great feature, and I really wonder why they only use it on that snare drum. Yamaha could use this system on all of their snares, in my opinion. It's great. And another interesting feature are the lugs. There are only 6 lugs on this snare drum. As you can maybe see, it's a 6-lug design. Dave likes to have, less material, less lugs on a snare drum. His 14 snare drums always feature 8 lugs instead of 10 lugs. And the 13s have 6, at least this edition. Maybe some newer edition has 8 as well. But this is the original one with 6 lugs. It really gives you an open sound, very open, broad sound. And you can also, tune it or detune it by only turning one screw. It will affect the sound of the whole drum immensely and more as if you would have a lot of lugs. You can really do with 1 or 2 screws, you can really drastically change the sound of the drum, and it sounds very open, very cutting, convincing. great sound. If you want something very warm and thuddy and broad and wide, maybe go with the 14-inch version. But this 13-inch version, it cracks. You know, it cuts. But it's still open and it's still warm. So it's a really special and really great sounding snare drum. And Dave used the 13 ones mainly as his side snare, but he did not only use the 13-inch version as his side snare, he used it as his main snare more times than I would have thought. For example, on tour with the Chick Corea acoustic band, he very often used the 13-inch version for jazz, which is something that I would not have expected. And he also used this quite a lot, you know, live and also in the studio for, you know, getting a really, as I told you, cutting, powerful open sound. So this is certainly not only a side snare, this is a main snare. You can do whatever you want with this. And that was kind of a problem that I had in the beginning because up until this day I did not really like 13-inch snare drums, or I did not really understand them that well. I mean, obviously there are a lot of guys out there playing 13s. For me personally, up until this point, a 13 was kind of too small for a main snare and too big for a side snare, because as a side snare I love 12-inch snare drums. So 10 or 12 mainly used to be my preferred side snare range. And you know, for the main snare, of course, 14. I mean, but you know, to cut it short, this of course is only a matter of getting used to something that you're not, you know, using already. So I've been playing this snare drum exclusively for the past week and I absolutely fell in love with it. I already compared it to two other 13-inch snare drums that I have here, and you know, this is the winner for me. This is the old, you know, black or gray maple finish, I don't know exactly the name, with the gold lugs. And it uses the you know, Yamaha aluminum die-cast tubes that I absolutely love. They give you kind of a little bit of the control of a heavy die-cast tube with the broad, warm, open sound of a triple flange tubes. And those aluminum hoops, they are even lighter than a normal triple flange tube. So they are really light, sound really open and warm, but you still have the tunability and control of a die-cast tube. Head-wise, I have a pretty new Remo coated Ambassador on top, and I actually put a completely brand new Remo Ambassador snare side on there earlier this day. So it's completely new reso head. Again, as always, I tune the reso head up pretty high. You know, I always do like 3 to 4 half turns on every screw, so pretty high tension on the reso head. Concerning snare wire tension, it's the same throughout the whole video, and I have exactly what I mentioned, the one facing me tight and the one away from me loose. And as always, absolutely no EQ on the snare and overhead mics. That's it for this week and for the snare of the month April with this very special snare drum. Tune in again next Monday where I will hit you up with a completely new video. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out all the other different stuff on my channel. For example, I have a whole course on hand technique and it's completely free. Or check out those clips, for example. And I see you all, of course, next Monday.